Hey, welcome everybody. We're going to give it a minute or so for everyone to load in.
Everybody's having a good day. It's a little gray and rainy here, so summer's definitely over. Did say summer's over, but I'm Pacific Northwest, so it's comes and goes pretty quick here. Don't know what the conversion is to Fahrenheit, but we're 12 degrees today, I
Right.
think.
Let's see where we're
Um,
at.
I guess introductions for everybody who hasn't participated in one of our webinars before. I'm David. I'm the information security officer here at Augmentt. I have my CISSP. I do a lot of our SOC and compliance work, and I also spend a lot of time working with MSPs, talking about security best practices. Um, a lot of my time is spent around conditional access policies and CSP, hence the taking lead on this webinar. Robbie does similar work as well, working with MSPs on that front. The goal today is to talk about there's some concrete best practices, and then there's some opinion based best practices of what I like to see with MSP's environment. So it can be a little bit of that. I'm trying not to editorialize myself too much, um, and hopefully people. I'm sure some of you are masters of this inside and out. I hope that you can still find some gems in this presentation. And for those of you who are new to the Partner Center concept, hope you guys take a lot of it.
I think we're
Um,
done loading up. It's slowing down, so you can kick it
Fantastic.
off.
Yeah.
Guys, I'll just check with the typical stuff here. So excuse my voice. I'm still getting over a cold, which is why David will be doing most of the talking, if not all of the talking today. I will simply state, let's use the webinar chat for open discussion, banter, that kind of stuff. If you have actual questions for the Q&A, please use the question and answer section. That way I'll be able to answer those either type or I'll feed them to David in order to get them answered. And we're always open to additional recommendations, suggestions on how you want us to go deeper or different topics for these webinars as well. We put them here for you guys. So I'll
And
kick it off to David.
I'm also okay with being called out if you guys think I've said something wrong or misspoken. I think we can all appreciate that Microsoft and security is a big topic, and lots is always changing. So feel free if you have any corrections that you want to chat about. Um, so quick little overview, Partner Center. Talk about less so about Augmentt, but more into a not a demo, but a walkthrough. Um, so for those of you who aren't familiar, what is CSP? CSP is a big, many different components to it. We're going to talk primarily about the admin relationship side. Um, and we could joke it's Microsoft's attempt at making your lives easier for MSPs. It's the idea is like it's a single key multi-tenant portal that gives your team the ability to securely and easily access tenants to perform your team's duties. Um, so you no more multiple accounts shared amongst your customers, building strong security controls within your CSP environment, maintain best practices and security measures, and then prevent scope creep with your customer, which I think is a little point that I don't think gets brought up enough. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. Um, and so it's one of the few things that Microsoft does that's free, which is nice. They nickel and dime you for licensing, so if you're not already taking advantage of CSP, again, it's free. You don't have to look into rush to it. I know that there's some things with the indirect reseller where there's like margin limits. But that's not something I can speak to with authority. Maybe Robbie can touch base on that later. But on the admin side, it's free, so you should really be considering it. And the process is really straightforward. You create a CSP account, you go in, you register within the program. You have to send in some documentation and paperwork about who your business is, where you're located, and what your market is. But generally, it's a pretty straightforward process. One of the few that Microsoft makes somewhat easy. The indirect reseller side of things does have again more components to it, but that's not the focus of the talk today. It's mostly about the administrative relationship side today. Just gonna switch slides. So the main thing around mastering CSP that we wanted to kind of talk about today is the security value of CSP, and where I see MSPs kind of get caught up in my conversation with them and work is not leveraging CSP to its maximum potential for the security benefits, in ways that don't slow your team down. Because I know that everything is about how quickly can we respond to tickets, close tickets. That improves the velocity that each team member can handle. So we don't want to slow your team down, but we still want you guys to be secure. So again, like I said, it's one account per tech with specific roles assigned rather than a shared account. And then being able to delegate specific roles to those accounts, so that way you don't have your level one techs accidentally having global admin access to your customer's environment, or conditional access administrator for people who don't know how to use conditional access effectively. The big one is the audible actions via CSP. When you connect to your tenant with CSP, everybody gets their own unique user identifier. So it's a lot easier to see who went in and reset this user's password, who disabled this account, who created this conditional access policy that locked out the executives who were traveling in a trade event out of state. The other one, alertable, for when a tech has taken access through PIM and other tools within Entra in your environment. You can be notified when someone's trying to gain access. And that's really important when you have security groups that have a little bit of a higher privilege roles within there, so you can keep track of who's doing what when. Um, and ultimately, it's using CSP versus the more traditional way of either shared accounts or multiple accounts through a password manager. It's better in line with security principles. Defense in depth is what we're going to talk about primarily with least privilege access. RBAC, if you're familiar with it, role-based access control. Especially if any of the MSPs here have considered going for SOC 2 or ISO 27001 certification. RBAC is a big component to that. Being able to demonstrate that your team has the roles that they have, only the permissions that they need in the environments that they're supposed to have access to. And so, just a quick recap. I hope this is easy or like common knowledge for everybody. What is defense in depth? It's a strategy that leverages multiple security measures to protect your organization's assets. I like to think of Entra as your castle. You can have, with conditional access policies, you got your location-based policies, your network policies, device compliance, alert, strong password, MFA, least privilege act. All of that is great. You've done a great job of defending your castle. But you're an MSP. You're not just in charge of defending your own castle. You actually have multiple castles. So each of these castles here, they're your customers. And I'm sure you can appreciate it's a lot harder to defend 10 castles independently than it is one. And so what CSP does is it wraps everything up into a walled city for you. It makes it a lot easier to control, because the way what we're like what we've been seeing as an increase over the past 5-10 years, uh, attackers aren't going after the one castle anymore, or two or three. They're going to go after the MSP, because if they can breach you guys, then they can breach everybody here. And so the whole idea is that you want to make it harder for them to get access to all of your other tenants, the other castles within your walled garden, your walled city rather. And so the challenge there is, how do we make this without slowing your team down, making it too complicated, and getting in the way of your team getting their actual work done? Internally here at Augmentt, I constantly have conversations with the engineering team about privilege escalation of when people need certain access to our production environment to do maintenance tasks or cleanup. And it's always a conversation of how long do they have to have those permissions for what. You have tickets documented and all that, and it slows things down rather than everyone just having like the master keys, which I know some people would really like.
And I think one addition to that is that GDAP has also actually left the castle in place. So
Mm-hmm.
when you used to have DAP, you essentially had control. You could kick the customer out, and so on and so forth. Whereas this actually leaves them a component of being able to take back control of their own castle, which was
Yeah,
a big portion of what Microsoft was trying to achieve here.
yeah, yeah. That's a good point. Like what Microsoft has really been pushing, and I'm sure we've seen it all with the Microsoft managed conditional access policies that have been slowly trickling out more and more, is that they're realizing either MSPs aren't doing it themselves for their customers, or customers are just being really difficult and not enabling the security measures that, I mean, they're paying for with their licensing. So they're just going to kick people over and start enabling those security measures. Um, so just quick briefer, least privilege access. Why should you do it? One, because it's best practice. Who says so? It's not just me. These are some of the many different security standards that have requirements for least privilege access. We hear a lot about MSPs working with customers going for CMMC, and that's what has been primarily just DoD customers, contractors of theirs, but now it's going to be much wider spread coming up. It's going to be all of anybody who's working with the U.S. government, so it's going to become a much bigger thing. Again, if you're an MSP going for your SOC 1 or SOC 2, I'm sure you're familiar with this. And there's many other controls. I'll grab a quick sample there. So how does this tie all back in to the partner center and some of the tips and strategies to help build that, um, to make your partner center secure and utilized in a way that Microsoft is expecting people to use it? Um, One, again, just to reiterate, it's not when you get breached, it's if. It's not if, it's when, rather. Um, so you want to make your castle a labyrinth. If you're not familiar with this picture, this is the ancient city of Babylon, and you can see when, say, if someone breached the walls, there it's a labyrinth inside. It's really hard for them to get anywhere to get those permissions, or to get into the valuable part, which is your customer's environment, where they want to get to. So again, historically, the older way, MSPs would have direct access accounts, your global admins, to make changes. It might be one account shared with a password manager. It might be multiple accounts where you've gone in and you've given your techs each their own independent account, or maybe it's um, one account for each tier of technician that you have, shared with a password manager. Um, it doesn't follow, again, best practices for least privilege access. It's hard to audit when someone makes changes. It's not the easiest to see, oh, Robbie went into this customer and made this change. And again, Microsoft has a better way for MSPs to do that. Particularly, like, it's hard it just adds work for when you onboard new techs to make sure that they have access to the accounts that they need, and when someone leaves, making sure you deprecate all of those accounts again. And so with CSP, that was one of the big things that Microsoft has tried to fix. Again, their initial implementation, like Robbie was saying, with DAP, delegated admin privileges, had a lot of issues that GDAP, I think, has really resolved within there. So the partner center, again, for tenant management, just to reiterate and just hopefully hammer these home, no more direct account access for customers' environment. Microsoft doesn't even want MSPs to have just like your global admin break glass account in your customer's environment. I know many of you do. That's up to how you want to organize yourself. No more shared accounts. Even with password managers, you wouldn't need, with the partner center, you no longer need to do that. You're leveraging your own Entra account, so your users are as secure as as your own MSP is. Ideally, obviously, your MSP has all the conditional access policies and security measures in place to keep yourself secure, which may be different than what your customers would tolerate. Maybe they don't want to have device compliance and conditional access policies that restrict location. So the shared accounts that you might have been using don't meet the same security standards that you want to have your own internal. If you have a P2 license, using just-in-time permissions for access through PIM is a fantastic way to again make your labyrinth a little bit more secure and strong. And I'll give a demonstration on how to set that up. It allows for that comprehensive least privilege access. I keep banging on about it, but I feel as though I say it a lot internally here, and just because I think it's just so important, and it's something that I see time and time again gets kind of looked over. And And this last point here, stand out amongst other MSPs. If you are doing all of these things well, when you're going to prospect against um, other MSPs, you're trying to poach a customer, and you look at how their partner center is set up. You ask, hey, how does your current MSP manage your business? Oh, well, they just have their own global admin account, and they come in and make changes. Or hey, here's their relationship within their CSP, and it's actually every role. It's really easy to nitpick at that and say, oh wow, yeah, your current MSP doesn't know what they're doing around security best practices. This is basic stuff. We at Augmentt MSP know what we're doing. We would never do this. This is crazy, terrible security. Um, so you can kind of nitpick on that, uh, and give yourself a little edge there. Um, so going into the recommendations now, kind of talking specifics around CSP and GDAP. Um, the most important thing again is to understand what is it that you guys, that your team actually needs. You don't, when you bring on someone internally, and be that marketing or sales, or they're on your help desk team, you don't give them all 78 Entra roles in your own environment, and so nor should you be giving that to them, that access to your customers. So you really want to understand what do we actually need as per the contract that we have with our customer. If you're not going to do any Power BI stuff, don't request Power BI administrator or Dynamics administrator. Or if you're not going to do any SharePoint administrative work for them, leave that off. So you book a meeting, discuss what you're going to be doing, and then tailor your GDAP requests to meet those specific needs. The other advantage to that is I'm sure we all love to have a enthusiastic technician who, when they get a ticket in, jumps on it. If you don't contract SharePoint work or Power BI work, and you have a customer says, "Hey, I really want to get a data lake set up, pulling data for a Power BI dashboard for our executive." Oh, well, that role is not in our relationship. Let me refer you to our business development team, to talk and scope that project out, and that keeps the technician from being their enthusiastic self and jumping in and starting a project that all of a sudden it's 20 hours of unbilled work that they've taken on as a side piece that you then now have to support without that work statement. I kind of talked about this on the relationship side of things. Here's three different examples that I had pulled from our own test environment. This one here, you can see it's got every single role except for global admin. I've seen some MSPs kind of skirt around that. By not requesting global admin, it does allow you to auto extend the relationships. This will auto extend indefinitely every 6 months. Effectively, that gives you global admin going back to least privilege access, not great practices. This one here, similar thing, even though the list of roles is shorter, global admin is snuck in there. And so you can't auto extend it. This relationship here, you can see the augment with the identifier that was created internally with our tool. But you can do this manually. There's 15 roles here. Global admin is not there. Auto extend is there, so it continues on. This should be what your average relationship looks like. One, it's really easy to see what it is that you as an MSP are doing for this customer, and identify that. And then it makes it easy for you to break that out into security groups to assign to your team. So that way everybody knows who's doing what, and who can do what, and how to promote people into roles that give them that access. And so you can see here from the relationship, there's these 15 roles here. Each of the security groups that assign I've got admin agents, help desk 2, help desk 3, help desk 3 here has a small subset of roles. You can give them all the roles, but you don't have to. And the one thing I want to call out, oops, I jumped the slide. I wanted to color, is it's not, if a user is part of help desk 2 and help desk 3, they get all the roles from both the security group assignments. This is important to call out. So because it's additive. It's not either or. So a user can be part of multiple security groups, and they'll get all of the permissions within there. Get rid of this. I'm going to show you a little bit of a setup within the conditional access policies, but by breaking things out into security groups and focusing on security groups for your least privileged access, it makes it really easy to secure those users by having different security or conditional access policies that apply to different security groups. So you could have device compliance required for your higher privileged accounts. Or session requirements or risk requirements that might be different than what your sales team has, or what your business, your marketing, or your level one team might have, because they don't have that higher privileged access into your customer's environment. And then this is the last one. Just I'll show you how it's configured in Entra as well. But this policy here, with this specific exclusion underneath guests or external users, service provider users, and then you can select the Entra environment. The intention behind this is if you have a super secure tenant who maybe they're a defense contractor or a bank or an accounting firm or a law firm, whatever they are, and they want nobody to have access outside of their environment. If they're running Intune, and device compliance, you as an MSP, your devices are never going to be compliant with their Intune policies. So by adding this exclusion, calling out your tenant, this gives your team that backdoor access into their environment while maintaining their conditional access policy stack, without adding any further exclusions. Um, and to do that, it's a lot easier doing it through the service provider exclusion than the individual account exclusion that you have to do if you had multiple people, or multiple accounts, and changing team members. I think the next slide points to the walkthrough. Before I jump there, is there any questions, Robbie?
Yep, good timing. So someone asked if there's pros or cons of issuing several GDAP requests with several roles versus a single GDAP request and then breaking it down into the security groups.
There's two different thoughts that you can have to that. I think I've seen other platforms set it up so that way it's multiple relationship requests per role. I think that's cluttered and unnecessary. In my opinion, and how I'd like, I think is easiest to manage would be one relationship which covers 90% of your work. That's your day-to-day projects, your user management, license management, Teams, SharePoint, whatever it is that you're doing. And then if there's any exceptions to that, that's when you would create the second relationship, and you can time gate that to a shorter window, and do it that way. One, it just makes the management of it so much easier. Otherwise, you're having to create or assign security groups for each of those different relationships for each of those different roles. And I think that would just become a mess to manage. And I've not seen anything from Microsoft that indicates that that's how they're expecting MSPs to take advantage of this platform.
Yep, entirely agree. It should also be called out that Lighthouse did have a sort of integration to try and do the delegation of specific roles, but it was very limited in its capability. So it had a bunch of pre-templated kind of capabilities. It absolutely did not include every possible permission that is available through the partner center. So we'd probably recommend sticking with the partner center and really having that granularity
Yeah,
in how you assign things through the security groups.
yeah, exactly. So this is our partner center within our one of our test environments. If you see a bunch of cluttered mess, I apologize. Again, there's many people here messing around. You can see there's expired relationships and all kinds of stuff. The one thing that to call out, there's two different areas within your partner center. There's your customer list and your administrator list. these can be and often are different. Again, if you get into the reseller or indirect reseller component of the partner center, this is where you set up for your license reselling. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're administering those tenants. So um, often there's often confusion around that. I just wanted to just call out and hammer that home. Those can be different, often are. Um, whether you if you're using Augmentt, you can request a relationship in app. And if you're coming in here, you can request a relationship, name it something specific, give it a specific duration. You can the other thing that you can do when you are prospecting with a customer, if you want to give them like a security audit, give it a review, you can give them a 30-day prospect relationship. It's always stressful typing in front of however many people are in attendance. Um, Select the roles. You can even just do a global reader here. Very low risk, lets you get in and kind of see how everything's all set up, or maybe you can do other reader roles. It's choices to you. You can send this off. No, very low risk for the customer. Lets them show that you're taking their access, their security seriously, and lets you have enough time and resources to be able to go in and actually check things out. But once you've sent off the request and it's accepted, the first thing you want to do, because you've now had this conversation here, tailor the requests and identified how you want your team to work. You know what users are going to be part of what security groups. And what I mean by that is breaking them out into your level 1 techs, your level 2, your level 3. Maybe you have specific people who do security work. You can have their own security work groups there. And then assigning the roles to those groups. So again, here's the 15 roles here. In this case, for my help desk agents, they got groups, license, password, and user. This means that anybody who's part of the help desk agent security group in my environment can access Augmentt CSP1, which is an Entra environment, as though they were a native user with these 4 roles without having to create accounts in their environment. Same thing with help desk 2, a smaller subset of roles, and then help desk 3. If Robbie as a user is part of help desk 3, 2, and my agents, he would have all of those roles. And again, you can come in and create a another security group. Okay, Microsoft has decided to not show my security groups. That's fine. But I could come into here and okay, this is a good one, and grab all the roles. That's also fine. If the users who are going to be part of this security group warrant having that, and that's the big thing. Like, does Robbie, who's in admin agents, does he really need conditional access administrator? Probably not, based off of his job description. Once you have your relationship set up and your security groups organized, the next step is to assign those users in your organization those security groups. And I know you're all very familiar with that how that looks. Coming into Entra, you find your user, assign them to the group. That's great and wonderful. I do recommend people, if they are taking like advantage of your P2 license, to get really comfortable and familiar with PIM, which is privileged identity management, simply just for the just-in-time group membership access. And what that means is that Robbie doesn't necessarily always have 24/7 access to those security groups. He can request access to that. Or maybe, depending on how the group permissions are set up, the group, the settings on the group are such that he permanently has access and doesn't require an approver. So you can see here that for members, Robbie could come into here. He could get access to the security group for 8 hours. There's nothing on activation. He does need to give justification when he's acquiring it. So you can have to say link your ConnectWise or Autotask ticket, customer needs conditional access policies updated for new exclusions. And in this case, there's no approver required. If you have higher privileged accounts and access based off of your relationships, you could have your approver be requirement there, and you can name specific people within your organization as approvers. And that the value for this is that one, internally, I'm a PIM admin. I get emails anytime someone requests or gets new permissions, and anytime those permissions fall off. So it makes it really easy to see who's doing what and where. And PIM is done on the MSP tenant. Most of your work, most of this talk is all about the what's being done in your Entra environment. And that's actually a good little breakaway. The one thing that I think few MSPs do, and I understand why, but Microsoft wants the CSP, your CSP account to be above your own internal account. And what I mean by that is that they want your CSP to be a different account than your day-to-day work account. I think that from what I've seen, fewer than 5% of MSPs are set up that way. But if you go and read Microsoft's documentation, that is what they expect. The advantage to that is that there's no way that like Levi from marketing would ever accidentally get access to these security groups because he would never need access to these security groups.
Yeah, and the idea there is that if you're using your own internal tenant, right, the one that runs your company as your CSP, um, it has to be usable, right? So it's security to the point where it's not um, impeding the company in its day-to-day functions. And so obviously security won't be, Fort Knox. And so if you set up a CSP and then take your own company in a relationship as you would any other customer, you can go very heavy on your CSP company. That's the technicians that are accessing this, right? It's not your sales team, it's not your marketing team, so on and so forth. And so then you can have those PIM and additional practices that may make it a little less convenient, but you're doing a secure IT function out of that tenant. And so it makes things more secure generally.
Exactly. And yeah, I can definitely get you get links to the how-to docs as well as links to the CSP separation. Um, and actually, yeah, that's not a problem. I found it. So yeah, PIM is one of the great things. I know we said CSP is great that Microsoft gives away for free. PIM is gated by a P2 license. I do think MSPs really should take a deep look into P2 and deploying it for their CSP tenant, even just with PIM, let alone the other risk-based um, uh, uh, value that comes with purview and conditional access policies. Um, uh, but yeah, sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought here. The being able to set the security groups to be time gated and requestable means that when you're asleep at 2 a.m., you know that nobody's going to be accidentally in someone's tenant without your approval doing something or without you being notified by that. So even if your users do get breached, there's no way that they're going to be able to do any more harm to your customers from your environment. So that, again, that's that whole labyrinth idea. And that's a big component to it. But if you don't want to do PIM, and this seems a little daunting as like a step one for you, if you're just getting into CSP, the big one that I wanted to hammer on is the conditional access policy stack that you can build around those security groups. So I built a number of these just this morning. I've got a few of them here. So I did my level 2 help desk. Okay, I've been signed out. My level 2 policy here is targeting that security group. that we mentioned earlier for level twos. And all this is doing is for all cloud apps, I just want to have passwordless MFA enforced and my security frequency 8 hours. Um, you set this one up this way. I would set this one up this way again to keep things separate from um, your sales team. Your sales team may not love having to sign in so frequently, but maybe they don't need to because they're not interacting with customers' environment. Um, and it's the same thing with your um, level 3 help desk. They've got security access that needs further protection, setting that up where they have sign in frequency 8 hours. But in this case, I also added in the device compliance policy. So if you're deploying out Intune internally, this makes it easy to keep that account type further secure. Again, without impacting other people in your department or your team that may not need it. The other valuable ones are the segregation of the risks, being able to call out those specific users and groups. I've got these ones here, help desk 1, 2, and 3. You know what? If their risks are, oh, this is required password. I grabbed the wrong password policy. Apologies. This one here. If their risk is too high, I'm just going to block access right away. So in this case here, I think I had it set to user risk is high, sign-in risk high or medium. I'm just going to block their access entirely. And then either the technician will call you up and say, hey, I need re-access, and you can have that your internal process handle that. Or maybe this is valuable blocking from the middle of the night that you might not have caught otherwise. The last policy that I just wanted to touch on in this section here is, again, what I showed. So this is my super secure customer policy. I'm a research firm working for a telecommunications engineering group. Nobody should have access except we have an MSP who works in a city across the state. So this policy here is granting access only for compliant devices, and sign-in frequency is every hour. They're super secure. You guys still need access to their environment to actually do your job and respond to tickets. So again, the process is you go to that policy and you exclude the guests and external users, the service provider users from this dropdown, and you want to actually go through and search. You could say all. That's one way of handling it. But the best way, obviously, is to call out your specific tenant. So you can search in here for your domain name or tenant ID and have that exclusion specifically added. And this will let your team, via the partner center, gain access to the customer's environment. Or if you're using a platform like Augmentt or anybody else in the market to pull metrics and data, you'd want to have that exclusion there as well through CSP, because that would allow us to actually affect and build the app.
Yeah, I was going to call out, this is why using the CSP integration for third-party tools is actually a more secure method than creating accounts in individual tenants that would use the typical conditional access rules.
Yeah, exactly. Where's my notes? So any other questions? I feel as though we've talked a lot of fairly big topics. I've definitely just kind of glanced over pretty on a somewhat high level. I think that PIM as a topic is worthy of its own 30-40 minute webinar separate to this, because it gets quite nitty gritty, and I think again more people should be aware of it.
I think there is one good question that popped up here. So do you think Microsoft did enough for the customers to observe the activities of partners performed via GDAP?
For the customers.
My gut feel is don't expect that from them. Oh, sorry. So, and there's a second question. Sorry. So, the other one is, do you think Microsoft has any real-time monitoring on the partners using GDAP? to perform activities, etc. I would say don't expect that from them. I don't think that they're monitoring MSPs and their relationships to their customers like close
Yeah.
individually, specifically from that perspective, right? I think they're generally monitoring their systems, but if you get breached and your customer gets breached, like I don't think that that's something they're trying to solve for you. And so I think that goes a little too deep in expectations. And then like for the first one, the first question of, sorry, did Microsoft do enough for your customer to observe the activities that you're doing as an MSP in their environment via GDAP? I don't. Are you aware of any logs? I'm not aware of any logs for this. So this would
No,
simply be
so
the typical logs from an environment, which I would say most of your customers probably don't know how to review.
yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody at Microsoft even knows how to review the logs. Sometimes it feels that they're constantly changing things on us so frequently. Um, the I think that the only time in which Microsoft would get concerned is if we ever get another SolarWinds incident that was precipitated by DAP, which is the initial version of GDAP. And that basically gave everybody global admin access to all of their customers. And so that's why they came out with all this granularity, least privileged access control, which is why I keep banging on about that. I don't think that they're actively monitoring every time someone comes into the partner center and goes, okay, I want to go into my customer and do some intra management. Um, so you can see here, this is what it will look like if your techs were using the partner center. You can see it created a generic, a unique identifier for me here using my Augmentt Roby domain. So my actions here are then auditable. So I can come into here and make changes based off of the permissions that I have there. Um, but I don't think that this is easily viewable, auditable by Microsoft. The the catch there is the I guess the one thing just going back a little bit to the DAP GDAP um, uh, uh, issues that I do see, and actually I've not got a good answer. I don't want to pick on Pax8 or AppRiver or anybody in particular, but I have seen in the portal a customers with multiple GDAP relationships because you can have multiple MSPs or multiple relationships with different organizations. Um, if anybody has a good answer from Pax8 why they have global admin access to all their customers, that would be great. I haven't asked them yet, um, but I do see that. And again, that goes back to as an MSP, you want to make sure that your CSP and your customer CSP is organized well, so you don't leave that little door open for somebody else to say, "Oh, you don't know what you're doing because you have way too many permissions that you shouldn't have." Um, Similarly, I don't know enough about Pax8 to know why they would need global admin access. But if anybody does have that information, I'd love to know. And I think it's the same with all of the other major license resellers.
Put you on the spot a
Um,
bit. Do you know how a customer would go audit their relationships?
yeah, so if I need to change my tenants here. Um, just before I go there, just while I'm in this page, I see a question from AJ. So about actually getting into the customer's environment through this method. Um, so I'm a technician. I go to partner.microsoft.com. I've signed in with my CSP account. Um, I go to my oh, it's now just lovely signing me out. Thank you. Um, I go into my administer list within the partner center. And then from there, I can click into the specific service that I want to actually work in. So again, customers. And this is sometimes why just it's a gift horse in the face with Microsoft. Yes, it is free, but the partner center sometimes is slow or unresponsive or frustrating to use. Um, but now that I'm in here, I can go to service management. I've got a ticket. I need to go and make changes to a user for their authentication methods. I sign into the account again. And now again, I'm now in the enter environment for Augmentt CSP1, who's my customer, with my user with the unique identifier coming in there. And I believe that the F89E is the Entra ID of my user in the MSP environment. So now I can go in and act as though I had a full on user in this account here. Sorry, Rob. I think there was another question, but I think I missed it.
No,
Or
those were it. The
oh,
one I asked you though is where a
oh,
customer would go and see their
gotcha.
relationships.
Yeah. So they'd be on the main portal, delegated admin partners. Oh, you can see here, I don't have permissions to look at this page. Great example of this my account not having the permissions. So I'm just gonna actually go in and sign in with my actual admin account for this test environment. And where did it
So we can see
go?
the UI actually looks a little bit different.
Yeah. And I'm just gonna go delegated admin partners.
Yeah, so if one of your customers wanted to audit themselves, where
Mm-hmm.
you're coming in, you're prospecting with them and you want to audit what everything may be in there, you could probably advise them to kill some old relationships, assuming there might be some there.
Yeah.
This is where I'll get a little bit on the uh my bandwagon here. I've seen these conversations happen in our community forums of, trying to prospect can be difficult because the customer has no admin accounts. And it's about one of the worst things I would suggest you can probably do as an MSP. Don't shut the customers out of their environment.
Yeah.
And the only way you can realistically do this, because you have to have at least an admin account, is you're creating an admin account for yourselves and then revoking their accounts. Um, and this is not just because, it makes it harder for other MSPs uh to come in and potentially swoop or, do an assessment of the environment and et cetera. Like I get that can be contentious, but the right thing to do is ensure that the customer has one or two champions, probably two being best, as a backup if the primary person is out and they own their own tenant. It's the whole reason GDAP exists. If they can't kick you out, um, then they don't have control of their tenant. All of GDAP is pointless.
It's that um exactly being able to come into here. I can remove roles from this relationship, which would just end the whole relationship. This is me as the customer working with the MSP. Again, Microsoft doesn't want you to have your own accounts in your customer's environment. Ultimately, I believe from the licenses and legally, the enter environment is your customer's like property, and not the MSPs. So they need to have keys to their own house. Um, they want you to be effectively like the guests through the relationships, giving both of you the ability to terminate. Microsoft has recently added the ability for the MSP to come in and terminate the relationship. This is relatively new. I think they added in the last 3 or 4 months, maybe a little bit longer. Um, and it's reciprocal on the customer side, being able to revoke both ways. Um, Again, this is how Microsoft wants MSPs to get access to your customer's environment, um, and they want you to do it in the least amount of permission possible. The analogy that I give is if you hire someone to come into your house to fix your washing machine, and you all of a sudden they're up in your bedroom, you'd think that would be weird. And that's how you should think about the roles and the permissions that you're getting within the enter environment. Um, or maybe if you don't find them up in your bedroom, but they ask, "Hey, can I go in your bedroom?" Or you'd be like, "Oh, that's weird. Why are you asking that? What are you gonna be doing there?" It's the same thing here. Hey, we're bringing you in to manage our users' licenses and conditional access policies. Hey, can I get access to Power BI? Why? And it's not just customer. Why is the customer asking why? It should also be why are we taking that on? Why are we owning that responsibility um, without being compensated for it? Um, any questions, comments, complaints? Anybody want to start a internet fight with me about what I said? I'm happy to go back and forth if I misspoke on anything. I hope that I know that I know from the chat from the familiar faces that I've seen there's some people in here who probably know this all inside and out. Um, I hope there were some useful things that people pulled from it.
Yeah, I'll just state in case you didn't notice it earlier, some people asked. So we made comments about the identity isolation and such. We did post that in the chat, so feel free to grab that link. It's the learn.microsoft link. One question is, do you see Entra access packages used by partners? Any use cases?
I've not seen that come up in my day to day, and I'm not super familiar with it. Maybe someone else in the chat can comment on it. I've not seen that in relation to CSP um, specifically, but um, yeah, Microsoft is pushing out so much new stuff constantly that it's hard to keep up sometimes.
AJ wants to start a fight about Lighthouse with me. I'm fine with that. I'll open it. No updated release notes since May 2025. So take that. I'll show you my release notes.
We got a release coming out tomorrow. Um, if anybody has any questions about it, or if you're working on setting up CSP and you want to have like a one-on-one kind of session with your team, happy to take that on and join in those conversations to answer any questions. Um, again, I think the more we work together as a community on the Microsoft like management side of things, the better we are for it.
In closing, everyone, obviously we're a third-party vendor in the space. We put these on to try and provide as much insight, in leveraging the Microsoft platform, doing the tools. We're not just here trying to trumpet and market our stuff. Obviously, we feel we have a very good solution when it comes to managing or leveraging a lot of the GDAP relationship capabilities in order to offer a security service through our tool. So if you're interested in learning more about what we do, just go on our website, augmentt.com, fill out the form, and we'll be happy to show you. But this is not meant to be a marketing webinar. This is meant to be value add. And if you want to see more of these and you have different topics you would like us to cover, or go deeper in some section of what we may have covered here, we're happy to do so. Drop us a note. All our emails are first.last@augmentt.com.
Awesome. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. Have a great one.
Cheers.
See you next time.